Hello there. In this video we're going to show you how you can create your own personalized ring. In this example it's going to be a Borromean ring, so it's a pattern that we've made available for you within Fluid Designer. So if you start off Fluid Designer, the first thing to do is to go to the rings folder. We were actually already in it, but so there's the rings folder. Now if I just scroll the center mouse button, you see there are lots and lots of objects here. Now most of these objects, almost all of them, can be used in the same way that we're going to show you with the Borromean ring in this particular video. So the principles that we're going to show you in this video you can use with most, not quite all, but most of these objects. So we're going to use this Borromean ring pattern. So if I just drag and drop that object onto the workspace, and I'll just scroll the center mouse button, and I'm just holding down the center mouse button now and rocking it to show you that the ring is almost formed in this instance, almost created for you. Now if I just move that panel down, what have we got at the moment? Well, we've got this Borromean ring pattern, and it's actually wrapped around this object here, this inner diameter curve. So that's giving me the inner dimensions of my ring. Now if I want a different size from this, the default size is 15 millimeters, which is not truly a UK size. If I want a different size for my ring, this is the first setting that you should really make. Let's say I decide I want UK size N, so what I need to do is I need to switch on the view, so the little eye there is the view, and I want to switch on this selection option here, this little arrow. That will allow me to select the object. So you can see now that my ring no longer fits accurately with that curve on the inside of it. So I need to reposition my ring, realign my ring. So first of all, click on the ring object itself, and you can see in the properties panel there are some settings here, and one of them says set the ring size. Now this is actually something called a curve modifier. It's actually this object here, a curve modifier, but it's been created for you. And as you can see, the object at the moment is the inner diameter. Well, by inner diameter we mean this curve object here that we've switched off. We want to change that inner diameter to the new UK size, and we're going to change it to size N. That's this object here. So first of all we highlight the ring itself, and then we change the object here to the new UK ring size, and we're going to do size N, 17.12 millimeters. So when we select that, you can see that the ring repositions itself, and this gap gets a bit larger now. And okay, so now what you've got to be careful of here is you've got to be absolutely certain that this object, the ring, is sitting just on the edge of the curve itself. It doesn't always do that when you create rings. So the thing to do is to go to View and Top View, and if you press the Tab key on the keyboard, and if I just point at the end of the ring here and just zoom in, you can see that the bottom of the object, the bottom of the ring, is just touching the red line. Let me just go to View and Top again, and I'm just scrolling the center mouse button to zoom out. You can see the red line there. That's actually the x-axis, and it's absolutely vital that the ring just sits on the x-axis. If it doesn't, you will need to reposition it by usually dragging it up or dragging it down. Now if I position it there, it will no longer be fitting right on my ring. Look, you can see it's now on the inside of my circle. That's clearly not what I want. So let me press the Tab key, and I need to have it sitting just there in that position. You may have to switch the snap off to position this if it's not sitting exactly in the right place, and zoom in as well before you move it. But it is in the right place here, so I can just press the Tab key and set that as it is there. Now, what have we got here? Well, if we look at set the columns, you'll see that we've got a count value here of 3. Now if I just set that back to 1, you can see that this is my main object here, my main pattern that was created for you, and this is a Borromean ring with 5 rings. And what we're doing is using a modifier, and this is called an array modifier, and it's already set up for you, and it's been labelled, it's been given the name to set the columns, but it is in fact an array modifier. And so if we change the count to 2, you can see we get 2 copies of the object, and those objects are being wrapped around this ring curve, our UK size hen. So that's all being done for you. Now there is another setting here, if you look, 0.8, and this is called the offset. Well, if we set that to 1, you can see that what's happening is our pattern is just touching, it's just repeating itself exactly 1 complete unit away from itself. So if we reduce this value, we get an overlap. Now clearly we do need an overlap if we're going to 3D print this object. If we go in the opposite direction, we've got a gap there, and that's not going to 3D print, that's not going to create as a ring. So we do need values of less than 1, and you do need to make sure you have a decent overlap with certain objects. Okay, so that's the basis of our ring at the moment. Now if we go to 3 counts and 4 count, we can see that our ring is now complete. But that might not be the pattern that you want, so you can adjust the relative offset there and change the pattern until you get a pattern that you're happy with. Now I want this little bit of a gap here, so I'm going to leave that there. But essentially now that is my completed ring. Now if I wanted to see the size of this, 19.11 millimeters is actually the external dimensions, and that's made up of 17.12 the internal plus the thickness of the ring. Now if I click on the curve over here, you'll see that my cross section for the ring itself is 1 by 1. So in other words, this is 1 millimeter deep and 1 millimeter high here and 1 millimeter thickness there. Now I'm going to leave that as that value, but you could, of course, if we scroll down to the bottom of the screen here, they're just the UK sizes, we could change the dimensions of the ring. We could create a thicker ring, we could create a round ring, depending upon what you actually want. That's quite a lot of UK sizes you can see here. So yeah, we're getting down to the cross sections at the bottom. So that's the setting that we are at the moment. It's 1 by 1. We could change it to 0.8 by 0.8. That probably will 3D print. You may sometimes, depending upon the shape that you've got, have problems. But we're going to leave it as 1 by 1. Another point to note is if you do change these values, you may have to go and realign the ring by going to View and Top and Tab key and make sure it's in line with the x-axis there if you do change the size. Alright, but I'm going to say that that's the size that I'm going to use. So you could now save this object to the desktop, sorry, not save it, export it to the desktop. We don't recommend you go to File and Save in Fluid Design, and we recommend you go to File and Export, because it's a wavefront OBJ file that's the 3D printable file format. So we could go to Export there, and Desktop, so it's a Borromean ring. Now we've changed the ring size to 17.12 millimeters, so you could change that there and then press the Enter key and export that OBJ file. So that's one example of the Borromean ring that you could create here. And we'll just give it a few seconds to actually complete the save there. Okay, so that saved it. Now the next thing we're going to do is, if we go back and look at the original screen there, you can see that this ring looks a little bit different from what we've got. This object is a very kind of square type ring. Here it's been slimmed out, and that's the next thing that we're actually going to do here. We're going to show you how you can slim the ring out at the bottom there. So what do we need to do? Well, the way I do it is I go to View and Front View. Now this object currently is a curve, and this icon here, this curve icon, and the bevel object that's displayed in the Properties panel, and also if we look over here in the outliner window, that little icon there indicates that this is a curve. What we're going to do next requires that we change this from a curve. Now once we change it from a curve, we can't change this bevel object anymore. We can't change the count anymore, or the object inner diameter anymore. All these things will actually be applied once we change this to a curve. Now the way to change it to a curve is to go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it from a curve to a mesh. And you'll see that they all disappear, those modifiers. So we've applied those modifiers effectively. So we can move that Properties panel out of the way now. And notice the colour of our object has changed, because this isn't a curve anymore, it's what's called a mesh. And if I press the Tab key, you can see that it does look completely different now. It's just made up of faces and vertices. So I'm just going to press the Tab key to come out of edit mode there. Now if I go to View and Front View, and I'm just going to press the Home key on the keyboard just to center it there, what I need to do to slim this down, to give it this effect, I need to rotate it in the X, the Y and the Z directions. And the way we can rotate in Fluid Designer is we can press R on the keyboard, and I want to rotate it in the X direction only, so I press X on the keyboard, and you can see the X-axis, the red line, appear there, and I want to rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm just tilting it there. Now I'm going to rotate it, R to rotate, Y this time, and this time I'm going to just use the mouse and just drag it around there, and I just want to get my gap at the bottom the same. So rotate X 90, rotate Y, and now I'm going to rotate it, R for rotate, Z 90 in the Z direction. So I've just got the ring sideways on now. Right, now we've got our ring positioned in a side-on view here. What we want to do is we want to slim it down at the bottom. So again, if we go back to the opening screen there, so we want to create this effect with the ring. So we want to slim the bottom part of the ring down, and we can do that by using the scaling function in Fluid Designer. Now to scale it, what I need to do is I want to first of all press the Tab key on the keyboard to go into edit mode, because I don't want to change the top of the ring, just the bottom. So I now need to, at the moment all of the ring is selected, so if I press the A key on the keyboard, that will deselect all. So it's A to select all, A to deselect all. I don't want all of this ring selected, I just want the bottom part. Well, an alternative way of selecting is B on the keyboard. B is for border or box select, and if I hold down the left mouse button, I can just drag a box around the bottom of the object and just highlight part of it. So I just want to slim down the bottom part of the ring, but I only want to do it in the X direction. If I slim it in the Y and the Z direction as well, my inner ring diameter will change. I don't want to do that, so I only want to slim it down in the X direction. So what I need to do is to press the X key on the... Oh, sorry, I need to do S for scale. S for scale. Now at this point you do need to wait a little while. And what we're waiting for is, if you look in the toolbar at the top of the screen there, we're looking for X, Y and Z scale to appear in the toolbar. So just look where it says View, Add and Tools, and just wait. Now it has changed, so it just requires a bit of processing computing power to actually do that. So wait until you get scale X, Y and Z. And we just want to scale it in the X direction, so you need to press the X key on the keyboard And notice that the red line appears there. That's the x-axis. And the message at the top of the screen now just says scale 1 along global x. Now it also says proportional size. Well, if you look, there's a circle there at the moment. And if I scroll the center mouse button away from me, I'm reducing the size of that circle. And as I scroll it towards me, I increase it. Now that circle is called the proportional editing circle. Now if I just move the mouse slightly and slim off my ring, and then if I scroll the mouse towards me, you can see the effect is that the top part of the ring is being scaled as well as just the highlighted bit at the bottom, and it's being scaled because of this proportional editing circle. Now that's important because it gives you a nice smooth appearance to the finished product here. So what I usually do is to have it just a little bit above the area that I want to slim off. Now if you look at the top of the screen at the moment, it says scale 0.7, so proportional size 7.4. Now our ring thickness started off as 1 millimeter. If we scale it down to that amount, it's actually going to be probably too thin to print. Too thin to make it into a real object. So if I scale it down to say 0.8, and I'm just typing this in, so a scale of 0.8 gives a proportional size of 7.4. Now in printing this at Shapeways, we can get away with printing down in silver down to 0.7 millimeters. So proportional size 7.4 should mean that the thickness of the bottom of this ring is just a little bit above that. Now what we really should do when we're actually doing this slimming down effect is, instead of starting off with a ring thickness of 1 millimeter, what we really ought to do is to start off with a ring thickness of 1.5 millimeters, quite a bit bigger than the smallest size that we can make. And then when we do slim it down then using the scaling and the proportional editing, we can bring it down to 1 millimeter thickness at the bottom. We haven't done that in this example because we just want to demonstrate what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to click the left mouse button, and if I press the tab key to come out of edit mode, you can see what's happened. We've slimmed the ring down at the bottom there compared to the top part of it. Now if I just zoom in, as I said, this was, if I just measure this, this was 1 millimeter across there. So you can see that's 1 millimeter thickness. That's no problem with 3D printing. Down at the bottom here, we've scaled it, we've slimmed it down. We should be just about okay. Yeah, we've got about 0.8 of a millimeter down there. Once we get below that, we're not going to be able to 3D print it. My general recommendation is, if you're going to slim down the ring at the bottom, before you convert it to a mesh, set the thickness at perhaps 1.5 millimeters. That will enable you to slim it down at the bottom much more than we've done in this particular video. Okay, so that's a Borromean ring, and we've slimmed it down at the bottom. So that's the end of this video. Thank you.